I'm on the phone with Anne from Pikapi Podcast, and we're doing another in our series of comparisons of the Japanese and English ending themes of the Pokemon movies. This time around, we're up to movie 13, Zoroark, Master of Illusions. I think I've called it Ruler of Illusions, which, depending on how you translate it, but Master of Illusions is the official English title, but just so you know. In any event, the two songs we have to work with here on the Japanese side, we have Ice Cream Syndrome by Sukima Switch, and on the English side, we have I Believe in You by Erin Bowman. And actually, in fact, we're going to have a third song a little bit later that we'll talk about a little bit, but for our initial discussion, those are going to be the two songs. And what can you tell me about Sukima Switch?
Well, they are officially a rock jazz fusion duo. They usually get classified under J-pop just because they're popular and they're from Japan. But that's their official designation, is rock jazz. Their members are Ohashi Takuya and Tokita Shintaro. Shintaro is the one with the afro. And what he does is he does the vocals, the guitar, and the harmonica. Shintaro plays piano and keyboards, and they have a couple other musical instruments and sometimes bring on other musicians on stage or on the studio for any instruments they can't play, and have been compared to Steely Dan, especially with their band dynamics and jazz influence. I'm not up enough on the jazz scene to pass comment on if that's true, but people say it is. And it's not really what they're known for, but they have gotten quite a few of their singles on video games or as anime tie-ins. If you're a big fan of Naruto or Full Metal Alchemist, you have probably heard Sukima Switch. By themselves, they also work as composers and producers on various projects. So again, you've probably heard their music before if you watch a lot of anime or television from Japan. Sukima Switch debuted in 2003, and they kind of went through a period where they stopped producing new content for a while. It was kind of compilation albums mostly, but I was actually just reading an article in May that says they're putting out a new album. So they're still active and still putting out new things, it seems. Let's see. Catchy pop is also a huge part of their sound, although like I said they've always been jazz and rock influence. And this newest album is said to kind of be going a bit back to those more catchy poppy roots. So expect something upbeat from whatever this album is. It's kind of hard to find stuff about them in English. So how they met and how they got started, I didn't find much about it, but I did read over their official site in Japanese and tried to translate some of it. It seems they debuted officially with their first single in 2003, but were appearing together as early as 1999. Competing in festivals and such. There's something about them performing on the main stage at Augusta Camp 2002 for 30,000 people. So it seems that they were making some headway. And like I said, 2003 was their first single release, View, and they've just kept building up steady momentum ever since. And they're both about 40 years old now and still going. And unfortunately, that's about as good as I got. Most of their info is in Japanese and difficult to read.
What about Ice Cream Syndrome? Any idea how that song came about or how it got attached to the movie?
I feel a bit like a broken record, but I think like many of the Japanese side ones that came before it, it was probably the band was contacted to do a song for the ending theme while the film was in production and probably didn't have as much info about what the plot would be as we would have liked. And it was kind of more of a tie-in situation than, crafting a song based on, deeply on the plot of the movie. And I think the lyrics reflect that because they are not super tied in specifically and literally to the events of the movie. I think it's fair to say, yeah, it was produced out of house and as a tie-in rather than produced for the movie specifically.
We'll get more into that later. In any case, who did they write this song, though? Do you know that?
Yeah. They, lyrics, production, composition, arrangement, everything. They produce everything in-house, and Tokita oversees the entire composition process, and Takuya is on lyrics. So yeah, no, they did everything themselves.
Okay, well, if we head back over to the English side, Erin Bowman This is not her first time working with the dub of the Pokemon anime. You may remember her first contribution was Battle Cry Stand Up, which was the theme to, let's see, I guess it was the third English opening theme. It's also an extended version of it appears in the Arceus movie, which we talked about last time around.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as her backstory, she pretty much got into music straight out of high school. I think she had a YouTube channel. You might be able to dig around it and find some of that stuff. But apparently she caught the notice of J.J. Appleton, which should be a somewhat familiar name. He did the Battle Frontier opening theme song for Season 9 and is somewhat in the loop with John Leffler and some of the other folks. So that sort of explains why the start of her career led very quickly to work in Pokemon, I guess. In addition to the battle cry and this song, she also did an insert song in the fourth generation you hear periodically called This Is the Moment, is the best official title we have. It's been shown in the credits in certain places. And in the next movie 14, she does the opening theme, Black and White. But we'll obviously talk about that when we cover that movie. In any case, outside of Pokemon, sort of the best-known single she had was Problem. And remember, it goes, you know what your problem is, you think you don't have a problem. That was one of her original things there. And that actually did pretty well. It got into like the top 40 of radio, so that might be one you've heard. There's also, let's see, King Boy that came out in 2013. Hey Summer. She had a song called Keep Me Warm that was actually used in an advertising campaign by McDonald's. Oh, Good Time, Good Life, which appeared on actually kind of a couple different TV shows. You might have heard it on NBC's This Is Us. This is a lot from the Wikipedia article, in case you're wondering. Most of the same information is available on her website. And let's see, Hawaii Five-0, it says. And actually, it was used in an Oscar promo, like a TV spot for the Oscars. And she's also, let's see, Good Morning America, Radio Disney Music Awards. She had a performance there, and Live with Kelly and Ryan. So she's still active today. She may, in fact, be the person who has parlayed doing Pokemon work into a more, I guess you could say, mainstream or normal music career better than perhaps anyone on the English side. I mean, granted, you have stuff from like the first movie, like M2M or, Emma Bunton's solo career. But hers, she never reached quite those heights, I guess you could say, with some of that. But she's still going and still doing stuff. I think if you look at her Twitter feed, I thought she mentioned maybe she had a bit part in like the LA production of Hamilton or something, but I can't totally verify that anywhere. Yeah, so I believe lives in the LA area now. She originally came from New Jersey and has since moved out there, but still very active and still doing stuff.
Well, good for her.
Yep, yeah. As far as this particular song, John Leffler and David Wolfert wrote it, so we can pretty much guarantee it was written for this movie. I think once we start talking about the lyrics, there'll be some definite tie-ins there.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes care of part one. Part two, we talk about the songs, sort of their style, their content, their lyrics, all that fun stuff. Swap back over to the Japanese side. How would you sort of describe the sound of Ice Cream Syndrome?
Well, I would definitely say that this has more of its pop influences, not in the upbeat pop, but kind of just in the fact that it's got a very catchy melody. And it's kind of got maybe, like, it's almost too soft to be rock, but it's like just a very understated percussion, like just a drum kit and an acoustic guitar. And like I said, just a very beautiful single singer melody that's quite catchy. And like, you can definitely see like little bits of the jazz and the rock influence, but I would definitely say this song is a lot more of the pop. Like, this is more top 40 than I think some of their other material, but not in the real upbeat and hardcore dance track type pop that you sometimes think of when you think of J-pop. And it kind of surprised me. It's not so vastly different, I think, from the English side, because they both have kind of those same instrumentations.
Yeah, there's definitely a warmth quality to the sound there with the guitar, I think there. Yeah, there's definitely some guitar and piano in there. To be honest, the vibe I got overall is that if there's a Japanese equivalent to light radio, or whatever you want to call it, this song would be on there. Not to disparage it or anything, but that's definitely the vibe I got. That this is sort of like the Japanese
adult contemporary kind of thing.
It definitely gives you that kind of vibe. Do you agree with that?
I do, and yeah, you're right. It's not a disparaging thing, but yeah, it's a genre that, like I said, it technically is pop. It technically could be a soft rock power thing, but yeah, it's kind of something else in between.
What about the lyrics? I did read a translation on Bulbapedia before we went into this, but it sounds like from what you said earlier that there's not a ton of direct time, but what is the song talking about?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a metaphorical connection. There's a few lyrics about illusion and distortion, but as it connects to the movie's plot, it's tenuous. It's about someone realizing that the status quo of their friendship has a time limit, and if you don't act, it will disappear like uneaten ice cream on a hot day. So the song is really full of vivid imagery of a hot summer day, and it's got fun times and sweetness and warmth, but it's also sweltering because they want their friendship to be more and can't find relief from the heat of those feelings. And if they eat the figurative ice cream, if they act on these feelings, that ice cream will be gone. The friendship they treasured will be no more. It will become something else. But if they don't act, the ice cream will melt and disappear that way. So friendship is a syndrome. And they love it, but they suffer from it too. But there's a happy ending. By the end of the song, they found hope and happiness and plan to eat the proverbial ice cream and enjoy that happiness even if it doesn't last.
Yeah, from what I read in the translation, it sounded like there is definitely a sense that, opportunities, they're only here for a limited time, and you do have to take advantage of them when they appear. And it sounds like that's your impression as well.
Yeah, and like I said, there is some metaphorical connection. Like I can see if Sukima Switch was given kind of the general themes and ideas of the movie, like this is about illusions, it's about being able to trust each other. That's one of the threads that runs through the movie a lot, and people being separated and stuff like that, like them writing a song that metaphorically fulfills all these things. But as it applies directly to the movie, the thing that strikes me the most is that this is the last Diamond and Pearl movie we got, and coming to the end of that series, it was the last we would see of Dawn on the big screen and of Brock in the party and running out of time for Pikachu and Piplup and their little bromance. So as a viewer, knowing that and going into the movie as the credits roll and it suddenly hits you that like, oh, this is the last time I'll see them like this, the end is coming. The song kind of hits me with a special meaning. Like our time with these characters is so short and their time together is short. It can disappear as quickly as that melted ice cream. And, those lyrics of looking through the viewfinder and they're already far away and the jet plane is taking them somewhere far away from us. So I don't know how intentional that was, but if that was the intention, that's a very beautiful thing for the fans, I think, who, grow to love these characters, and especially Brock, who we had a long time with, and knowing he's about to go in for reals this time.
Well, certainly in hindsight, we would know that. Yeah, I guess being as this is the last Diamond and Pearl movie, there is sort of a double meaning there.
Yeah, like the only other things I get some feel of this concept with like the illusion world that Zora was from, and the fact that we meet these legendaries like Entei and Raikou and Suicune, and we form bonds with like Celebi and stuff. And then at the end of the movie, the legendary always has to go. And the characters we meet in the movies, it's only for a short time and then we go our separate ways. And like there is a sense of wanting to reach out and maybe keep this for a little longer, or maybe act and change the status quo. But will that break everything? So like, I won't say it doesn't fit with the movie, but I feel like I'm having to dig more. I feel like what it brings to the movie is the mood it evokes more than anything literal happening in the words.
Yeah, definitely some, I guess you could say, stretched metaphors, if that's a phrase.
Yes.
Well, if we swap back over to the English side, that one I think, I do feel like it's really interesting. There's a bit more force behind it on that one, especially in terms of the vocals, I would say, and definitely like on the bridge, there's a little bit of a harder guitar edge there than we get in Ice Cream Syndrome. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's a bit more of what did you say, force or power behind it on this one? Like there's a lot of similarities, but this one has a bit more intensity to it.
Yeah, and there are a couple lyrics in there. Now I at least tried to relate this as sort of the Zorua and Zoroark relationship in the movie. And I'm not sure if Erin's voice, which one that's supposed to be in there. It's sort of there are some definite two-way similarities, if you know what I mean. They sort of have a similar relationship to each other. Does that sound?
Yeah. No, I feel yeah.
Yeah, we don't know a ton about what they were like before the events of this movie, before Kodai sort of, captured them or whatever for this scheme. But it does seem like they have a very close relationship, which is interesting.
Yeah, and it's definitely an implied sort of mother-child thing. So, you being there for me in my darkest days, you came for me when I lost my way. Like, that definitely plays a part. I'm always just really struck by all the stuff about I believe in you, just because that's the one metaphor and thread in the movie that really got pulled out for me. I think you appreciated this movie overall a bit more than I did, but that line that kept getting repeated of, do you trust me? Do you believe in me? And, that final one between Ash and Brock where it's like, itsumo shinjiteru sa, like just, oh, my heart. So I keep pulling that one out as like the traveling party, as well as the Pokemon, just their ability to all trust in each other and the Pokemon's ability to trust Celebi, despite like all the illusions and everything that's happening, the entire gang kind of coming together to make the plot work and trick Kodai. And
yeah, and there's actually one line in there I really wanted to call out. It says, "I know who you really are."
Oh, yeah.
That is, I think, very specific to some of the stuff that happens in this movie. Because you have, the illusion ability of the two Pokemon there. And so I just felt that was, obviously that can have, meaning within the franchise well outside of that. But for this movie in particular, I felt that was a fairly clever line.
Yeah, and wasn't there, what was her name? Was it Rowena, the dark-haired woman? Like, wasn't she playing a part kind of when we first meet her and then we find she's actually on the side of good?
Yeah, Kodai's personal secretary is a recent hire who turns out is a plant to sort of figure out what he's actually up to when he's visiting the city there.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little things throughout this movie. Like, I think, like, I haven't researched it, but I think that definitely was one of the themes tying the whole movie together, because like the later Pokemon movies are all based around like one concept. And I think believing in you and who you really are, like believing through the illusion, is the concept that tied this movie together. Because there's a lot of stuff like that where people are not what they appear, and people having to trust each other even though they're presenting a face that is false, or there's an illusion going on that they're not aware of. And I know who you really are, kind of facilitating that trust through the situation. So I do think like it's not as specific, like some of the lyrics are vaguer, but the metaphors in this song do tie into the themes of the movie very well.
What do you think of Erin's singing in here, particularly compared to some of her other work? I wish I could, I don't have a good enough musical vocabulary to say what she does so well, but I can totally see why she's gone on to have such a successful career.
Yeah, I think it was last episode where I said I wasn't as much a fan of her voice, but it kind of grew on me by the end of the song. This is one where right out of the gate, I am much more on board with it. There's something about her singing voice that is quite earnest. And I think I'm not as big of a fan of light and breathy from her, but like when she kind of digs a little deeper and like lets a little bit of that rasp and a soul out and a warmth, I find that there's something about her that you just kind of want to believe. Like you believe the feelings that she is trying to convey to you. So I think she's just very good at using her vocal instrument to convey feelings. Like she has a lovely tone and all those things too, but like that's what strikes to me is like she's not just a good singer of like being able to hit all the notes perfectly. She's very good at being able to convey the emotion through the song she's given.
Keep listening for more from this interview